They say Las Vegas was built on one sacred promise that everyone who enters believes, truly believes. They are the exception, that the house will spare times them, that the lights were lit times for them. Mirabelle Ose believed that. She believed it with everything she had, the confidence of a woman who had spent years watching someone else shine and had finally decided it was her turn. She was wrong. But that is exactly how the city likes it. It started, as most dangerous things do, with a phone call. Janet Menza, Mirabelle's closest friend, her college roommate, the woman whose Instagram had 14,000 followers and whose life always seemed to be one carefully curated frame ahead, had fallen pregnant at the worst possible moment. 11 weeks along, exhausted and holding in her hand an invitation that most women in their circle would have sold a kidney for. A golden-edged card bearing the name of the Celestine Lafontaine Fall Couture Show to be held on the 22nd of September at the Venetian Resort, Las Vegas, Nevada. Janet had been scouted 2 months prior by Lafontaine's regional team during a brand activation in Accra. She was supposed to walk the runway not as a professional model, but as a muse guest, one of 5 selected women of African heritage chosen to embody the collection's theme. Radiance. It was the kind of invitation that didn't come twice. But the pregnancy had not been kind to her. The nausea, the swelling, the fatigue, she could barely stand for 40 minutes without needing to sit. And so, at 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night, inside her small apartment in Kumasi, Ghana, Janet Mensa called Mirabelle Ose. She called her because Mirabelle was her friend, because Mirabelle was beautiful, poised, and close enough in measurements to wear the curated pieces the Lafontaine team had already approved. She called her because she trusted her. She should not have. Mirabelle had agreed before Janet finished her sentence. She dressed for the airport the way generals dress for war deliberately. A cream-structured blazer over wide-leg caramel trousers, Bottega Veneta mules, a single gold cuff on her left wrist. Her locks freshly retwisted and pinned back in a way that was effortless only because she had spent 2 hours making it look that way. She carried a caramel leather carry-on that Janet's emergency fund had quietly helped cover. On the surface, she was doing her friend a favor. Beneath it, a different story had already begun to write itself. Mirabelle had spent the better part of a decade in Janet's shadow not because she was lesser, but because Janet had always been first. First to graduate with honors. First to be recruited by a multinational. First to be called beautiful by strangers at parties. And Mirabelle, who was generous in the way only people with very long memories are, had smiled through all of it, applauded, celebrated, and quietly kept score. This was not a favor. This was a correction. Las Vegas received her the way it receives everyone, with spectacle and no sentiment. The heat pressed against her the moment she stepped outside Harry Reid International Airport on September 19th at 3:30 p.m. local time. Dry, relentless, and indifferent. A black SUV had been arranged by the Lafontaine team, and she rode in silence past the strip, watching the signs blur the Bellagio, the MGM Grand, the Venetian rising out of the desert like a hallucination someone had decided to make permanent. She had been booked into a junior suite on the 23rd floor. The room smelled of white tea and leather. There were 3 garment bags hanging near the window, each tagged with Janet's name. Mirabelle stood before them for a long moment, then unzipped the first one. A midnight blue draped column gown, Celestine Lafontaine's signature asymmetric neckline, cascading back, the kind of dress designed to make a room pause mid-breath. It had been made for Janet's measurements, but the Lafontaine team had agreed to a quick fitting adjustment when Mirabelle had sent her own numbers the morning after the call. She stepped into it in front of the mirror and stood very still, and something shifted behind her eyes. At the private dinner held in one of the Venetian's smaller banquet rooms on the evening of September 20th, ivory-draped, gold-lit, humming with the particular electricity of people who understood their own importance, Mirabelle encountered the architecture of ambition she had not fully prepared for. There was Dominique Alcott, the American fashion editor, mid-50s, silver-haired, who wore her power the way others wear perfume present before she entered a room. There was Rashid Kamara, a London-based Nigerian creative director who had flown in for the show and whose attention Mirabelle quickly understood was a form of currency. And there was Celeste Vega, another Muse guest, Venezuelan, luminous, and already 2 glasses of champagne deep and networking, with the precision of a woman who had done this many times before. Mirabelle watched all of them. She ordered sparkling water. She smiled at the right moments. She said less than she thought. And then Rashid Kamara leaned across the table and asked, "Tell me, how long have you been working with Lafontaine?" She paused for only half a second. "This is my first time," she said, "but I intend to make it memorable." He looked at her the way people look at things they are considering acquiring. "I believe you," he said. That half-second pause, that small deliberate reframing of the truth, was the first stone she dropped into the water. She did not know yet how far the ripples would reach. The pre-show briefing on the morning of September 21st was where the line was finally crossed. Mirabelle had been introduced to the Lafontaine production team as Janet Mensa's replacement. The language of the arrangement had been clear, temporary, and respectful. But when Soren Ellis, the show's creative liaison, sat across from her with a clipboard and asked whether she would be open to an extended feature, a 3-minute spotlight moment filmed backstage, to be used in a post-show digital campaign, Mirabelle answered without calling Janet. She said yes. She said yes, and gave her own contact information for the talent release form. She said yes and told Soren that her team times would be in touch. She did not have a team. She had a best friend in Kumasi who was 11 weeks pregnant and checking her phone every 20 minutes. Janet called that evening at 9:14 p.m. Mirabelle let it ring, then sent a voice note. "Show prep, babe. It's been a lot. I'll call you after." She did not call after. The runway was a river of white marble light, flanked by 900 guests in curated black on the night of September 22nd, inside the Venetian Grand Ballroom at 8 p.m. The air carried the particular electricity of an event that understood its own significance. And Mirabelle Osei walked out in the midnight blue Lafontaine gown, back bare, head high, locks swept to one shoulder, and she was, in that moment, everything she had decided to become. The room responded. Cameras flashed. Dominique Alcott nodded once, slowly. Rashid Kamara watched from the third row with the stillness of someone making a mental note. She looked extraordinary. She felt extraordinary. And 12 minutes later, standing backstage, she checked her phone. Janet had sent 17 messages. The last one, timestamped 8:09 p.m., read simply, "Mirabelle, I know what you did with the campaign form. I know." It unraveled, as all lies do, not with a crash, but with a quiet and precise erosion. Soren Ellis, following standard protocol, had sent the talent release confirmation to Janet's original email address, the one on file with the LaFontaine team. Janet, still in Kumasi, had read every word of it. The extended feature, the spotlight, Mirabelle's contact information written in where Janet's had been. Janet did not call Mirabelle. She called Dominique Alcott directly. She had the number from a previous brand collaboration, and Dominique, who had built her entire career on the ability to distinguish the genuine from the performed, made one call to Soren Ellis, and the digital campaign was quietly, efficiently pulled. Mirabelle's name was removed. The feature would not run. By 7:42 a.m. on September 23rd, Mirabelle received an email from the LaFontaine team, 3 lines, formal, impeccably worded, thanking her for her participation and informing her that no further deliverables would be required. She sat in the hotel lobby in a cream silk set she had bought specifically for the morning after the show, a flat white going cold in her hand, surrounded by the particular cruelty of a beautiful room that no longer had anything to do with her. Mirabelle flew home 4 days later. She did not post a single photograph from Las Vegas. Her Instagram, usually updated daily, went silent for 11 days. Janet Mensah gave birth to a girl in February. She named her Grace. The LaFontaine team months later reached back out to Janet directly for a maternity editorial, the kind of work that ages beautifully, the kind that lasts. Mirabelle sent a congratulations message when the baby came. Janet replied with a single heart emoji. They have not spoken properly since. Las Vegas kept every promise it made to the one who was patient, to the one who was honest, to the one who understood that the city does not reward the hungry or the desperate, it rewards the prepared. Mirabelle went to Las Vegas to replace her friend. She returned having replaced something far more valuable and far more difficult to recover herself. The city never gave it back.